Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening to Tesla stock, what we can expect moving into next week, into a fresh month of June, of course, which actually historically is one of Tesla's better months. Let's see if that happens to be the case this time around. But yeah, let's go over it. I'll give you my thoughts. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, etc. Again, I do share my thoughts with our members every single day the market is open, as the market is trading. So definitely check it out. The link is down below. For just $3 a month, you get access to my Tesla tier, which is again $3 a month. Tesla updates, technical analysis, options, flow, etc. Every single day the market is trading, as the market is trading throughout the trading day itself. $5 includes NVDA into that as well if you're interested, or $7 includes non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA stocks. $7 US, of course, that I share as well, that I see opportunities in. Such as, for instance, today I was talking about how Tesla 1 hour, just like that, actually, I shared that even before, how we're going to go up into there. You can see this is like right in the morning, 5 hours ago. I'd watch for the 36235 zone. This is where the bears are still waiting to strike, and the bulls need to push past this to see my 375 target. 350 is still major support. And look at this, we pushed right into it. And what do? We pretty much rejected almost to perfection right at that zone. Pretty beautiful stuff. But nonetheless, let's talk about it. So Tesla, it's a little bit questionable. I'm not gonna lie. We are starting to enter a little bit more questionable situation here. So it's a little bit complicated. I'll be honest. This is a bit of a complicated situation for many reasons. Number one, let's go with the daily chart first, right? You know what? We'll start with the 1 hour chart. We'll start with the 1 hour chart, and then we'll work our way to the daily and then the weekly. So the 1 hour chart, like I showed you on what I at least shared with our members just now, in the morning, it looked something along the lines of this, right? Where we pretty much had this nice lower low over here on the morning open. Then we pushed up right into the Fibonacci's, ended up being just nothing more than a bearish retest. And then the bears strike down the stock once again, pretty aggressively, well down as well, right? So that's kind of how sometimes these things work, unfortunately, but it is what it is, right? We had that MACD bearish crossover as well. So things weren't looking too good, to say the least, on the 1 hour, right? When we started losing that momentum that I shared. I think even yesterday I shared it a little bit, but yeah, that's just kind of how she rolls. Now, the question here is, well, what happens next with Tesla stock, right? Well, on the 1 hour, we pretty much, or even 50 minutes shows the bear flag a little better. We had that substantial sell-off, right? Massive sell-off, had that little bear flag, and now we, of course, broke down below it. In the last, honestly, at 350, there was a huge spike in volume. You can see here, large spike in volume, pretty much pushed Tesla down pretty aggressively, actually. So that did kind of ruin the technicals a little bit, right? That did make things a little bit more, I guess you can say, questionable, to say the least. So back to the 1 hour chart, it's not looking as great as I honestly, as I would like to see it. Why? Because, well, this area that was clearly a massive area of resistance, ideally, of course, we came down to it like this, and then from here, we continued to push up, right? This would have been the ideal scenario, which is kind of what I shared with the members as well towards the end of the day. If I scroll down somewhere around here, these are roughly the two pathways I see for Tesla, and this is when we just started that recovery, right? Up a little bit, and then it just ends up being a false flag, and pretty much a bear flag, really, and then we move down, or we do break out, fill the fair value gap, but then we get a convincing 1 hour closures above pretty much the low 350s, and then come back, retest it, let's say Monday, and head higher. Unfortunately, we chose the bearish path, right? Where it was just ended up being pretty much a bear flag, and then we continued lower, right? So not ideal. I'm not gonna lie. This, it does have a bit of a questionable look in the short term, right? So in other words, now, naturally speaking, because we ended up failing around this area to turn it into support, which, clearly was a resistance here, I would naturally expect this once again to unfortunately be resistance, which doesn't mean we can't break back above it. We absolutely can. But at this point, it's one of those things where, you'd want to see it happen as opposed to assuming it'll happen, naturally speaking, right? So let's see how that plays out moving into early next week. That's going to be pretty important to tell. Now, going to the daily chart, also a little bit concerning, right? Now, for the while now, I've been mentioning how my main target was closer to 375, but how the high that we set actually yesterday was the exact same high that we set pretty much right back here on the 19th of February before the massive sell-off. Now, like I said, though, we're in a bit of a different situation over here, right? Because, this was an obvious downtrend, especially with the exponential moving averages. Here, we're in an uptrend. I mean, at least relative to the exponential moving averages. So it's not, it's not one-on-one, of course. Keep that in mind. But that doesn't mean we can't get still some potential downtrend. So the point I'm trying to make here, I guess, is the fact that, we didn't really get exactly to my 375 target that I was ideally looking forward to see. We still could. Don't forget, we're still in this rising channel. So it's not completely over yet for the bulls, though it's looking less convincing. We got pretty damn close to it at this kind of 367, 368-ish region, right? We got, within dollars, of course, of my target, which sometimes that's how things roll, right? But obviously a massive area of resistance, and nonetheless that I mentioned around that general vicinity, which, is not too surprising overall. Just I was hoping we can go a little bit higher than that, but it is what it is. So that's that, right? That's kind of that resistance area to kind of point that out. But the next thing to look for is going to be the 8 exponential moving average, which is kind of this green line over here. You can see pretty much ever since this uptrend began all the way here on this very nice reversal, we got that massive push up, and you can see every single candle from then on forth for the last, like, I don't know how long has it been, like 3 weeks or whatever it's been. We haven't closed a single candle below that 8 exponential moving average. Now, we did go below it 2 times over here, you can see, but the point is we never closed below it, right? That's the most important thing to understand. We never closed below it, and we ended up actually pushing even higher. This is the first time we actually have, you can't deny, we closed below that 8 exponential moving average, which does show at least a potential loss of momentum. One candle doesn't make a trend, so you don't want to jump to complete conclusions over one single candle, of course, right? Not always. You want to see at least some level of confirmation, such as, if maybe Monday's a red day, that's going to be concerning. If we start losing this, trend line essentially falling out of this rising channel that we're in, things like that, right? If we start seeing those as well, that will be a concern. Or on the flip side, if on the 1 hour, let's say Monday, we end up getting a push up back up here, and it's just very evident that this area has clearly turned into a resistance, kind of like what it did over here, any of those signs will be further proof that there is a damn chance that the momentum has absolutely faded, right? So let's see how this plays out, right? But again, it's not completely over for the bulls, because despite obviously having some more, red flags come in, such as, of course, like I said, the 8 exponential moving average losing 350, and I also mentioned this for a few days now, that we have that bearish divergence on the RSI, despite those factors, which are still very much present nonetheless, don't get me wrong, there is still one final major hope, I guess, for the bulls, which is, of course, this rising trend line. This still is something that could be okay for the bulls. Now, whether or not this is enough to actually hold it and potentially get a bounce that looks something like this, nobody knows, right? I can't tell you for sure if it is or is not, right? I don't know. But the point is the fact that is still that possibility there, right? That's still something that you shouldn't completely ignore if you're bear or bull. So let's watch for that moving into next week. That's going to be really, really crucial. But all that being said, with the things I just mentioned, it does show a lack of momentum, right? Or at the very least, a slowdown of momentum, a potential loss even, at least to a certain level. So instead of, let's say, being at a scale of 1 to 10, being at like an 8, 9, or even closer to a 10 in the momentum that we've been pretty much in up until today, you can make an argument the fact that that's been dialed down to like maybe a 6.5 or something like that. You know what I mean? It's still momentum. It's still there, technically speaking. It's not as convincing, or it's not as aggressive as it could have been, or maybe bulls would like to see, for instance, right? So, and this is interesting, because the market actually still is holding the 8 exponential moving average. You can see the Qs are still holding it, SPY is still holding it. So Tesla is definitely underperforming here a little bit, right? So it is what it is. Now, so let's watch for those levels, right? Let's watch for, again, pretty much as early as Monday, really. I mean, pretty much around the low 340s. To as major support, which can still provide some major support. We can still get a bounce from there with the target still closer to 375. That is still a possibility. I mean, again, it's not fully over yet, but if we start losing this, then that's going to be the concern. That's going to be really, really bad. So again, one day at a time. And the final thing I want to quickly mention is going to be the weekly. Yeah, not great. I'm not gonna lie. This is a very, very not a very sexy looking weekly candle. Let's just say that, unless you're a bear. If you're a bear, it's pretty sexy. Why? Because, well, simply put, I mean, clearly, we run up into this resistance zone once again. And on top of that, well, we have this very hideous, pretty much inverted hammer candle, a doji candle setting up right at the top of an uptrend, which looks like a pretty textbook reversal type candle. So if we lose that 340s or low 340s, if we fall out of that daily rising channel like I mentioned, and if that does come to fruition, right, which you can't fully ignore, of course, this will tell me the fact that we most likely begin our trend back down, probably closer to the low 300s, if not maybe even 300 itself, where I will actually view as a potential pretty nice opportunity for bulls once again to reignite the stock, because that's where all the exponential moving averages are currently sitting, still nicely crossed bullish. So if we come back all the way down here and get tight right in the exponential moving averages, right around this general vicinity, right, the low 300s, that could provide a pretty explosive support and a liftoff area for the bulls to potentially ignite the stock, if you will, moving into the next few months or however long it will take. But this is all assuming we, of course, lose this rising channel, which is looking more likely than it did yesterday, naturally, but not confirmed just yet. So let's, watch for that moving forward, of course, right? Nothing is perfect. But like I said, the final thing that I do want to mention very quickly is, of course, if we do end up getting that sell-off to about that 300-ish zone, this could just be a nice, beautiful looking cup and handle pattern, right? That will look something like this, right? And then we blast off. It could look like that as well. So let's watch for that moving forward. But all in all, that's all I got for you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. Options flow on Tesla stock. We'll take a quick peek at that and see if there is anything worth mentioning on Tesla stock towards the end of the day. Pretty mixed flow actually towards the end of the day. Nothing really to note. You know, a bit of a bulls and bears for next week. So nothing really comes to fruition, to be completely honest with you. Nothing that I'm looking at here and being like, wow, or, you know, concerning or bullish. So it's kind of mixed, to be completely honest. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.